You guys, make sure you sign in the checking codes. We'll be starting shortly.
Oh, I have to do it too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, make sure you guys do both codes. If you guys want food, you guys need to fill out the AS form.
Phil's dying.
I'm not good. What did I do this week?
Wow, number one.
That's not my fault, bro. Yeah. Steve Jobs, I mean.
He's dead. That
This is why you should always put windows here. I'm kidding.
Oh no.
We'll start yelling at me in 3, 2.
No window. No window.
I'm gonna use a Mac because my friend said the M1s were better. They're more powerful.
I don't know why. I'm really just on my.
You have a Pro, right?
I have an Air.
Oh, wait, what? A Air?
I like, Matt's like pissing off a lot.
I think it's good to try and play. I think it's good to try. and relationships in between different documents in the data. On the other hand, a NoSQL database is what we're going to be using for this workshop. It's also called a non-relational database. And in this one, there's no strict structure that they have to follow, and there's no like strict keying and relationships between each document that it has to follow either. Rather, information is stored in the document with key value, column, and vector formats. Next, we're going to move on to setting up our MongoDB. So for this project for Hack School, we're going to be using MongoDB, which is a NoSQL document database. In MongoDB, data is stored in collections of documents. And each document is basically a set of key value pairs. And using MongoDB, we can query for data, and it uses a special data format called BSON, which is an extended format of JSON. And so this is basically MongoDB's structure. As you can see, a collection is a group of documents. You can think of it as like a table if you were imagining like an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. And then within each collection, we have what's called a document. And then in that document, it's just a grouping of data. So for example, one document has one person's name, age, status, and groups. And another document will have a different person's name, age, status, and groups. And then all of those documents are grouped together in a collection. And so Jason explained, MongoDB BSON is not quite the same as JSON, but it mirrors its notation very similarly. And so that's why we're going to be explaining this right now. And basically, it's a notation for representing an object that has properties. So as you can see right here, everything inside the curly braces is considered part of that object. And an example of a property would be first name, and then that would be the key, and then the value would be Sam. Another property would be last name. The key is last name, and then the corresponding value is Jackson. So everything contained within those curly braces is part of that object. And so it can contain any kind of data types per property. It can have strings, numbers, arrays, and also objects within that original object as well. So moving on to setting up MongoDB, on all of your computers, you should register for a MongoDB account. And after that, you're going to be filling out basically these instructions. So I recommend following along on your own slides.
Yeah, so you guys should be going to the MongoDB website, getting your account, and then following the next steps. And then raise your hand if you're confused about anything.
I want to show them the pictures. Like these.
Huh?
Like this. Show them the pictures.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of have to go through it at their own speed though. So I think it's good if they look at it on their own. You know what I mean?
Do at the end.
Yeah. Or I mean, because like if I bring the slide forward, then someone might get lost, you know what I mean? So I think it's better if they just go through it. Oh, and there's instructions with pictures on the slide, so make sure you guys refer to that. Should be, yeah. Yeah. It should be in the The speaker with a slash. I mean, that's how I have. And then when you have the end file. Did it auto connect without the slash?
No, you need to add.
I always thought it corresponded to the name of the. I mean, as long as they just copy what I did, it should be fine. Because I tested it on my local within the account.
Can I get a thumbs up or a thumbs down on how everyone's doing with setting up their MongoDB? Yeah, see a good amount of thumbs up.
You can continue.
Oh, is everyone done setting up?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you need the slides? Do you guys have the slides? Yeah. To be honest, I think they're still working on it. So. What?
What's their book?
I just. How do I make sure it's recording? How do I make sure it's recording?
Wait, it says like.
Oh yeah, we're good. This all right.
Yeah.
You need a copy to like the box with me and each other.
You're some relief of pick out checking out the pattern. Checking
I don't know if it's, I mean, you can always go do it once, right? Yeah. I don't know if it's popular. Creative. So, yeah, so.
Soon.
Oh, you don't need to, you just need to pop down the. Just copy that and put it slash you can, but.
It's actually raised to be.
You're saying that.
You can do it and it's just like a back on.
$81 please.
Yeah, we just need to save it for later. What? Yeah, the slides. Well, make sure you name it this. Oh, all right. Sorry, go back. The next slide, there's a screenshot. So just the copies. Then we'll do. Here's the. Then after that, yeah, you just gotta copy it. So you like it, don't copy something. Yeah. It's fine. Or you need the whole thing. And then between those two characters, you have say how to quite crazy. Oh, if you go to this, the other side. And then the side looks at this. Side there. And you have this. Here, next one. Copy this. Okay. Just slash it out. You guys slash it. Show you. Oh.
Yeah. We'll just be.
Wait, 1 second. If you guys haven't saved your starter code from last workshop yet, make sure you do this before you do the .m file step. I don't think they're working on it.
Yeah, so you guys should be going into your code editor like VS Code and then saving your current progress, do these steps, and then doing git checkout workshop to get to the new code for this workshop.
Many activities we put in?
Like 3.
I think we can make it. Let's do 20 minutes for 50. So hopefully we finish this by 7. Or let's finish, or we'll finish the setting of MongoDB by 7, so then we'll do 20 minutes per activity after.
Can I get a thumbs up on how you guys are doing with this?
If you're not done, can you raise your hand, please? Okay. Then, you're still on this one, so go to slide 4. Go to slide 4 on the slides. Yes, from slides. So I made my ton of base, so I should either choose this. No, that's also choose. So you have the repo column. Okay, go to.
Doesn't matter if they do the automate security.
It'll whitelist their IP. If they don't do that, they need to go to network access and then whitelist their IP
The
manually.
sample data set doesn't matter, right?
I think they should uncheck that. Yeah. And then the second instructions will be on that slide. It's like what you can do is simple levels. We did also that something.
You didn't check.
Yeah, I was something else to check my yeah. Yeah, that's okay. Then we can go to create the lot. You need a, well, I'm just switching that on. You can't issue. Get that and it's not found these issues. The document that this us. How much we got? You then you go. So I don't where you can get some days with you 6 of us and that's where and the trade that's the you wouldn't get to a job and pretty much into the different there's a lot of people how to get that. Yeah. Oh, yeah, trying to find that out. That's why. So I think it opened on like another, there should be down here trying to block it somewhere. I needed to get out of the top. Okay. Well, there, like, this is the 2024. Oh, yeah, that's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. I would say that's right. You would have like the impression because so it's to require you to start this. So you have Yeah, that might be what's pretty. You're right, like. I don't know. You know, was it just on your own? By. So, you can just clone the signals into here, and then switch off. And you don't need to do the next up. Yeah, and if you replace that with or it's regular, so if you don't actually know the grams. Pretty sure. You can still do Was it, you're able to get it up? Okay.
Hey, raise your hand if you're still setting up the MongoDB.
So on site, we didn't know. And
I mean, we have 2 more minutes till 7. We'll just definitely move on to 7. You think so?
But I made the round.
Okay, if you guys are still not set up and you need help, make sure you raise your hand, but we're gonna be moving on for now.
We're not asking.
Okay, so moving on. Mongoose is a library that we're going to be using that works in tandem with MongoDB. And basically, it is what we call an object data modeling library. And so basically, in normal MongoDB, there's no imposed structure on each of the documents as it is a NoSQL database type. So basically, we use Mongoose to define schemas, which is blueprints for how each of our documents are going to use. And from those schemas, we can generate models, and each instance of a model is a document. So you can kind of think about it like a class in Java and how those create objects. And so within your terminal, from pressing Control squiggly line, we need to now install Mongoose. So then after you open the terminal, you're going to type cd server and then npm install Mongoose. And then after that, you're also going to run npm I to install all the other libraries we need.
Yeah, so everyone should be going to their VS Code and then entering cd server, npm install Mongoose, and then npm I to just install all the dependencies you're going to need for this project. And then please raise your hand if you guys need help. Yeah, so just a simple any file. And then that's, and then maybe the
Does anyone need help with anything? Okay, and once you've saved your password into your .env file, just like that, you also want to add port equals 3001 to your .env file. And then once you're done with that, you're going to go into server/server.js and put these lines of code.
Are they just copy pasting coding? Okay.
And then basically this troubleshooting slide, you don't have to worry about it right now, but if you want to test it, you can go cd server and then npm run dev and make sure you don't get any errors there. But I don't remember if it crashes or not. So.
Make sure you put your password in. And I think it's no quotation marks. Let me check out that.
It's a string.
It is. Yeah, we should. Yeah, it's not quotation marks.
Oh, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's no quotation.
Really?
Okay, I mean, you can.
Yeah, take out the quotation part. So your connection string in your DB URL should not have quotation marks. Okay, so now we're going into the next part of our workshop where we explain schemas. So what is a schema? Schemas are basically like blueprints for the structure your data is going to take in your database. So it's just templates that define the structure, type, and rules of the data that you're going to be using in your database. So in this instance, it will be MongoDB. And then schemas define the shape of the documents that go into this MongoDB database. So by itself, MongoDB actually doesn't require a strict structure of what your data could be. So for example, like if you want to store your name, it could be in a username field or in a first name field. But since we're using Mongoose, this helps enforce a more strict structure on your data. So you can have more consistent database that works better with your project. And then for more information, you guys can click this link to look at the documentation. So now we'll be going into Mongoose types. So when you're designing a schema, we have to specify the data type of each field. So for example, this could be string, number, date, Boolean, or mixed, which is any data. There's object ID, array, decimal, and map. You guys may recognize these from your programming experience. Another thing you can do is actually nest other schemas inside a schema, which basically means you're having an array of a certain data type. So for example, your poll schema can include an array of option schema objects. So if you think about it, inside your poll, you would have many different types of options, and you would need a schema to represent that as well. So this is why you would nest another schema inside a schema. Okay, now let's define our poll schema. Okay, so everyone imagine you're tracking data for the creation and use of each poll. What fields will we have in the poll schema for each of our polls? And what will be their types? So you guys can take a few seconds to think about this, talk about it with your neighbor. Okay, so does anyone have any idea for what type of fields we might have in this poll schema? Any volunteers? Yeah, you could have a string for the title, like a description. Yeah, so in our poll schema, we're gonna need an owner ID, so a string for that, and then a title, as our volunteer said. We would have a string for that, a string for description, and for options, as I said before, we would nest a schema and have an array of option schema objects. And then for total votes, of course, you want to keep track of like how many people are actually clicking on this poll. So you have a number for that. And then now we'll be going into our first activity where you guys write the poll schema. So you guys can follow the directions. So the first step would be going into your server directory, creating a models folder, and then within that folder, create a JavaScript file called poll.js. And then you guys can follow the next steps to write the poll schema. And if you guys are stuck, there are definitely some hints in the earlier slides about how to write the schema. So we'll give you guys about 10 or 20 minutes to work on this. Doing great.
Really? There's a lot of people.
Oh, I see. So, but it's in math school, I think we forgot that when you were. And so when you forgot to do. I just made an absolute, I just called them something, and they like it. Oh, there's good. Oh, I think I have to move the. So you now after the structure to the one there. Yeah, I should. No, this is the code. If you want to find.
What's up? So I did like Isu. This is my first workshop, but I downloaded Isu, and I think it's the time as a GitHub for AC. So what do we do you have the slides open? Yeah, they're here. I can go back to it.
But it's not. Then she's like this on there. You want it to be. So whatever you want. Oh, well, one thing. We actually want in the way of. So option schema is gonna go inside full schema. So this should be full schema. Okay, and then option schema is something such that goes inside your base class. That's we're not. That's just from. This is the option schema. And then the option schema goes inside. So your poll is gonna have like your corner ID, your type ID, and then it's gonna have this regular option schema inside there. So it should be. Yeah. Yeah. You're gonna want a title string, a description string. You need the comment. And then you're gonna need options, right? So option schema already has the structure for all of the values. So you realize there's quite a big. But basically the purpose of required is you don't want other people who use it. So it's basically a way of enforcing the rules on that. So it's like. Yeah, like if I wanted to create a loophole, since I've had required here and required here, when I create the loophole, I have to give it a title and I have to give it a number. But I can leave the description like. Yeah, so we take this, and then if you replace it, replace the password, and all that, so, and. Yeah. Just copy this. The first thing is, I should finish writing those. Can you go to your phone? I just have also. Yeah. That's unfortunate. I'm gonna say, I'll try to move them. I think it's not. Yeah, it's not. And it's so, yeah, last time, I mean, you should have 6 foot. And then you have this channel, and go out there. They can't do options. Yeah. But now, for some, it's like, no, it's like, carry it down and then you. How do you get all that? No, the Europe, not much, you guys want that, so the last quarter did best. Oh, yeah. It's like this is the first one. Why is it like a but you're just Oh, that's. Yeah, I'm one of our. Because you create this folder inside Pine server, but then you can work on here. You were in the of the RA, and then now this. Oh, at least not RA. So now you have those plans. You didn't put them. Yeah, and then put it on. So it's just like. Oh, I think you like it differently than. I don't remember if this is capitalized on it, but it seems sort of. I think we can actually. In the highest capitalized, it's not very good. That's what. There's some there. No, you are, I keep on, it's like, how I know what. Yeah, it's not, we don't have the exact question. Yeah. It's very. It is sensitive. Oh, okay, so you're using data process for account number. Yes, and you put a comment. Oh, yeah, yeah. I don't know how Mongo and you, so I'm trying to keep the, yeah, you guys. Did it work when you tried to do that? No, you didn't. You did, but we did that. Yeah, and then now. Yeah, I didn't realize that there's no stairs. I didn't notice that. How are we doing? I need help.
If y'all want round 2 for food and you're done with the activity, go ahead.
Can I get a show of hands of everyone who's done the activity? It looks like a good amount. So now we'll be just going over the answer key. You guys might have seen it in the slides already. Yeah, so this is the answer key for poll.js. So you guys can see at the top, you're importing the Mongoose module. And then you have the given option schema, which shows option, which is a string, and then count number, and then the ID of that option. And then you guys were writing the poll schema, which has the owner ID, the title, the description, options, and total votes. And then at the end, you define the object poll and make it into a model using poll schema, which is the structure of your data. And then at the bottom, you guys have to remember to export the poll to actually use it. And then just to test if your poll.js works, and to also create a sample poll in your database, you guys should run npm run test schema in your terminal. And remember to cd into server before you guys run this. And then if you guys find out that you guys don't have a test schema file, you guys should go back to the starter code and import all of that before you run this command.
I think there's something I was involved in this. You just need to don't have it so that. The package. That's. Mostly dead. Or so you should. What's happening? That's the server. I mean, that's the option. All you cannot. Oh, yeah. It's up here. Oh, yeah, you the earlier do a lot of node to base server that almost certain. This is we might you get it, also you make class right now. You know exactly where you are. Yeah, because if we weren't in server, you rather all the other exits. I asked someone this for about, it's not something like second, I remember all the things you did or that was. Yes, we found that. Yeah, they can probably give you some monitors in the thing. Yeah, but I think I did this. Yeah, I'm trying to look at it. Oh, my God, it's fine. This guy's going to be so close. Okay, but okay. You're talking first, the place all happened, it's not 70%. The whole. It will.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys are seeing it connected to MongoDB and success message after testing your poll.js. If you guys have any problems, remember to raise your hands so our helpers can help you. Then we're just gonna be moving on onto our last section, which is database operations. Okay, so we're gonna be going into read-write operations. You guys might have heard of it in your programming classes. These are basically CRUD operations. And what CRUD stands for is create, read, update, and delete. And these are just the operations you guys are doing on your database to just customize the database. For example, if you're adding new polls, that'll be create. If you're retrieving polls or results, that'll be read. If you're changing data, like adding a vote, for example, that'll be update. And deleting a poll is self-explanatory, it's delete. So in this project, we just need create, read, and update. But you guys are feel free to implement deleting as a bonus after we are done. So now we're going to go into creating a new document. So MongoDB, as I said before, is a document-oriented database. This means that it stores data in documents similar to JSON. So when we create a new document in the database, we do this by using the create function. And you guys should pay attention to these functions because we are going to be using these in the following activities. So you guys can see the example. At the top, of course, you have to import your poll model schema. And then you can see the new poll object, which we define. And then we're using the .create function on poll to create a new poll. So using this function, we are creating a new document, which is basically a poll record in the collection of documents. Now, how do you read a document? We can read one or more documents from the database using poll.find. And it's also possible to filter the documents that you read. So in this example, of course, you import the poll model schema again. And then to get all the polls, you do await poll.find. If you want to find the 3 most recent polls, you would do .sort using the created at field and then .limit 3. If you want to find a poll by its exact ID, after we define the ID, you would do poll.find by ID with the parameter ID and then execute. So now we'll be going into the second activity. So basically in this activity, you guys will be creating 2 controller functions to read poll data from the MongoDB database that you created. So first, I want everyone to navigate to your server directory, into the controllers folder, and then to the poll controller.js file. So the first controller function you guys are going to be making is called getPolls. And this is going to return all the polls in your database. And then the second function will be returning a single poll based on its ID. So you guys this might sound a little familiar from the slides I went over earlier. And then this will give you practice using Mongoose queries, for example, find and find by ID, and sending JSON responses with Express. So now I'll be going into the specific instructions. And then just a little note, after each controller function, we want you guys to test that controller function. So how you test it is by going into your testcontroller.js file, which is inside your server folder. So after you complete, for example, you're done with the getPoll function, you're going to uncomment the respective code block in the testcontroller.js, and then you're going to run node testcontroller.js in your terminal to test that specific getPoll controller function. So now you guys can work on the second activity on writing the get polls function. And then if you guys finish early, you guys can go to the next slide where you're writing the next controller function.
So people can't even connect to MongoDB. This one's getting a bit of It's like they can't even connect to MongoDB website.
Can I get a raise of hands of everyone who's written the get polls function? See a few hands. So we'll just give you guys a few minutes before moving on.
Yeah. But we together, so I just did it. Something's supposed to help. I just ran. Oh, I should probably make it. Okay, this is right, so. And then now you can close the computer, so maybe that's not real fast. And then go to your next. Oh, it's a great time. So, but this is what's happening. So, yes, we should. Oh, really? Does anyone need help? I got it. Yeah, maybe, we checked it together. I'll take that. Like the same. It was, yeah, it's basically about 500%. So since it's everything in the parentheses that matters. So since that's a P, it's a printf. Yeah. So it just means that like it only return what's done, otherwise it's the I. There's actually a subrevolution called or you could do like ID solving and so you could also do find dot add. It's a different font.
Yeah, so for everyone who's done with the get polls function, you guys should be checking your solution by running the script, which we put the instructions in the earlier slide. And then if your get polls function is correct, your terminal will output something like this. So here you can see that the connection to MongoDB was successful. And then now we're returning all our polls. And we can see the sample poll in this list. And then just for time's sake, I will briefly show the solution and then move on to the next activity.
The only way for us to do it now is something. So I'll do that. Oh, you were but I didn't know that. So that one only had this one had
Yeah, so this is the get polls function. Here at the top, you can see we are finding all the polls by doing await poll.find. And then we're doing a simple console log message, just so we know it works when we run the script. And then we're returning poll at the end. So guys have to also remember that it's an async function over here. So that is the get polls function. Okay, now moving on to the get poll function. Yeah, so get poll will be a little similar than the last one. So first you're going to declare your async function again. But this time it's different. There's actually a parameter for the async function. Because if you think about it, if you want to get a poll, you need the ID. So the parameter would be ID. And then in the next direction, you're going to pull the ID value from the request parameters rec.params. So you put a little starter code on the right, you declare const, and then brackets ID equals. And then next, using const poll equals await, you're going to use a Mongoose query to look up the poll in MongoDB using your parameter ID. And then after that, you guys are going to console.log like last time, and then return poll. Then remember to add your function to module.exports so you can actually test it. So we'll give you guys a few minutes on this, but since we're running tight on time, we'll be showing you guys the solution in a few minutes. And then remember, once you guys are done with the function, you guys can test it by running the test controller script.
He did it fast. Oh, okay. So, sorry, I was debugging there. I just uncounted that just. Oh, yeah, that's not easy. I didn't go. This is. It's the same but I just figured it's action stream doesn't district support. There's no history or not. Yeah. It's something I had about those. Let's see what it says. Success. All right, try to just like. I just created I'll do that on first time.
So just a little hint, if you guys are stuck on the second direction, it'll be const bracket with ID equal rec.params. So that's how you would pull the ID value from rec.params. Okay, for time's sake, I'll be going over the solution for get poll. So here at the top, you can see we're defining our async function with the ID parameter. And then the next line, you do const poll equals await poll.find by ID with the parameter ID. So find by ID is the Mongoose query you guys would use to find the exact poll by its ID. And then we're doing a simple console.log message with some string formatting saying return poll with the ID. And then at the end, you do return poll semicolon. And then that's your simple get poll function. So I'll give you guys a few seconds of this. Then back to the slides. When you check get poll, you can see it's connected to MongoDB, and then it's returning poll with the ID. So this is the poll you guys actually populated into your database when you ran test schema earlier. This is the sample poll. So here you can see that you're grabbing this poll and returning its fields. So this is what your terminal will look like if your poll controller function is correct. Okay, so now we're gonna go into a little break from activities, and we're gonna be teaching you guys about updating a document. So Mongoose, which is the library that allows you to have strict rules in each document, supports multiple methods for document updates. So for example, updating a document with .save triggers document validation. And this ensures that the new document still follows the schema that you made. And this is best used for updating only one document. So you can see in the example, in the last line inside the if statement, you can see await mypoll.save to update the document. And then more about updating a document, you can see you can use update one and the update many command to update a document with no validation. And this is better when you're doing it for many polls. Don't want to, like, oh, one poll is missing and then your bulk operation is done. So you would use this to update many documents at once. And then here you can see an example for .update one. You can see the filter. So what poll are you going to update? It's by this poll ID. And then you have the update operator, which is $set. And then you have what are you updating it with? So here you're updating the description field. And these are the properties to update the document with that you're going to specify inside the brackets. And then another important note is object destructuring. So you guys have seen this in your earlier activity. If you guys remember, when you're pulling ID from rec.params. So you guys did const brackets with ID equals rec.params. And this may seem a little unfamiliar to you guys, but it's actually a really common thing in JavaScript called object destructuring. And this is how you easily reassign an object's properties to other variables. So instead of manually accessing each property from an object, destructuring lets you unpack values directly into your variable in one line. So for example, if we have an object like const user, you can unpack the name and age fields from user in one line instead of accessing it through user.name and user.age. So you guys can see how streamlined it is when you use object destructuring. And this is especially useful when you're sending data to a client. You can unpack all the fields at once before validating input for missing fields. So here you guys can see the difference between normally accessing the properties and object destructuring. So next we'll be going into activity 3, where you're writing 2 more controller functions. So what post-poll is doing, your next controller function, is creating a new poll, and then post-vote is recording a vote on an existing poll. So using these 2 controller functions, you're going to practice reading data, the request data, you're validating inputs, you're updating MongoDB with Mongoose, and you're returning JSON responses. So like before, you guys know the drill. You should check your solution after writing your controller function. So and then we'll give you guys a few minutes for activity 3. What's up, Maxi?
8. Is there anything else out there? I think we should do like pay for this, so like we said, you go. That would do it. They want. I do the same way like. Yes, it's time. I thought that if you don't actually want to stick around and.
Okay, so it is 8, which is the official end of the workshop. But since we're running a little behind, like if you're busy, you guys can leave. But right now we're just gonna be doing a quick rundown of the activities and the solutions. And if you guys still want to stick around and work on it, feel free. But if you guys are busy, since it is 8, you guys are free to leave.
Dedication there. At least a few people are there.
I like this dedication, yeah. Yeah, so if your post poll function is successful, this is what you guys will see in your terminal. So you're running the post poll function, you're connecting to MongoDB, and then you're posting this poll, which you can see here, it's Tyler's poll. And then by running this operation, you're actually putting the poll into your database. So your database now has Tyler's poll. And then just to go into the solution over here, first we're going to define the async function with the parameters owner ID, title, description, and options. You guys can see this is an example of object destructuring. And then next, you're going to validate each field and make sure it's actually there. Next, you're going to define your poll object. You're making a new poll with the fields owner ID, title, description, options. Then you're updating the poll using await poll.save. And then you're returning the poll. So that is the post poll function.
You showed the solution to the area possessed 2A.
Over 2A. Here you go.
Okay. I really like the.
So after you're done with each function, remember to export it. So it'll look something like this. So module.exports equals bracket, and then you put the name of all your functions that you're exporting from the file. Yeah, you should probably have that, but yes, definitely have a semicolon.
It's good practice. Yeah, it looks good.
Yes, it is good practice.
So you have no, can you try to see this? So.
Then
So it's under your.
going into your last poll controller function, which is post vote. You guys want to put a vote to your polls, right? So just follow the directions, like as before, you've done this like 3 times already. Define your async function. And then inside the function body, you'll have some specific requests to make. And then you're going to perform a single document update. And then on the next slide, there's more directions. So make sure to refer to your slides. And then make sure you have your functions all exported. So I'll just be going over the solution for the last one. So here at the top, you're defining your async function with the parameters poll ID and option ID. Then you're validating each parameter by using an if statement. And then you're defining update option as an object to update one of the polls. And then you're specifying which of the parameters you are updating in the poll. And then you're validating if the modified count equals 0 or not. So if it equals 0, then there's error, failed to update poll. Next, you're finding that poll again using find by ID, using the parameter poll ID. And then you're doing a console.log statement, and then you're returning updated poll. So that is your post vote function. Yeah, so that is the end of the workshop. Thank you guys for staying and working on your MongoDB skills. And then, yeah, make sure to check your post vote function. Now here's a feedback form, so for any feedback or suggestions you guys have for us. And then thank you for attending the second workshop. And then see you guys next week.
So then I just have to just play this.
I'm so cracked. I'm so good. I'm so good.
Yeah, I was trying to write.